Hello friends, and welcome to today's video where I will show you how to draw these simple, easy and rather quick spring flowers with me. I'm today using my Inktense pencils, but if you don't have the Inktense pencils, then it's okay to use pretty much any water-soluble pencils or crayons you might have, so you can use your regular watercolor pencils or even your Neocolor 2 crayons for this short little drawing session. The sketchbook I'm using is by Hahnemühle. It is the watercolor sketchbook in this beautiful brown toned paper, which I think works really well with these colorful florals. I will have all the colors linked in the description that I'm using today, but I will also share with you as we go which colors I'm using here, but it's really up to you which ones you want to use. So I'm starting with amethyst, which is this beautiful light purple, but as said, you can use any kind of light purple or even some bluish pink that you might have at hand. The other purple color I'm using today is the dark purple, so it's good to also have a bit of darker shade of purple or violet at hand for later stages of this little flower tutorial. So I'll start by sketching just the outline of the flowers, and then I'll start adding the stems and also some leaves. And for the leaves, I'm using a selection of different greens. So what I have here at hand is peach green, light olive, fern, and also Ionian green, and later on I'll also use a bit of mint leaf. So that's a lot of greens, and you definitely don't need this many, but I love to mix colors, as you know, and I love to use different shades of green to get this very lively and varied effect. So really it's up to you which greens you might have at hand, and just test and see what works best. So as said, I'll start with some very quick outlines, and then I will start adding a bit more contrast and some other shades. So here you can see me using dark purple to just add some darker line work, and once we start activating this with water, then it really comes to play that you have different shades and kind of a variety of shades on the paper. I'm also here using this lighter purple, so as said, this is the amethyst color of the Inktense range. I'm also using that to put a bit more color on a page, so once we have the initial outlines, then it's good to kind of start coloring, I'd say. Just color, add some color, and then that way you'll have enough pigment on the paper once we add some water. I think watercolor pencils, or Inktense pencils in this case, they are just wonderful for sketching florals. They are so easy to control, and you can just enjoy the process of kind of sketching very loosely and adding color. So definitely one of my favorite mediums for this type of quick nature art. Here I'm also using a lapis blue, which is beautiful light blue, to add some contrast to the purple. And then I have here gold, which is beautiful warm yellow, as the name suggests, and I'm adding that to also give some contrast and some depth. So as you probably know, yellow and purple, they complement each other really well. So adding just a hint of yellow to this little picture really highlights that purple wonderfully. And then we start adding some water to activate the pigment. And here you can see my approach to any watercolor pencils, really, including these Inktense pencils, that I like to be very careful with the amount of water, and I like to very carefully just spread the color around. And what you can see me do here is I'm also kind of painting as I go, so utilizing the fact and playing with the fact that I have lots of this water-soluble pigment on the paper, and I can even use the kind of brush strokes and methods that I would use with watercolor. So I think that's what makes these kinds of water-soluble pencils really fascinating, and also very easy to use. And as long as you don't have way too much pigment on the paper, you're gonna do fine. That's one of my tips if you are more new to Inktense pencils, or if you struggle with them and finding the right way to use them. One of my learning curves and learning points have been that be careful with the amount of pigment that you put down on the paper. and also with the amount of water that you use to activate that pigment. So it really takes its time for you. At least it took time for me to find the best methods and best ways and techniques to use these pencils. Because I use them so lightly and add only a hint of pigment down at one time, that's why also my pencils look this long. They look like they've been never ever used, but in fact I actually use them quite a lot, but because I use them on very, very thin layers, they don't wear down that much. And that's also a very economical way of doing this, but really of course up to you which kind of end result you want to have, but just wanted to share that tip with you because some people often ask me that what kind of techniques I use to get these kind of light and airy look with the Inktense pencils. So this little illustration really well describes and shows you what I like to do with these. As we move to activating the leaves, you can see there also that the reason why I wanted to add different greens, because we are not blending everything together. I'm kind of letting parts of that line work to be still visible, and that way we can create loads of interest. At this stage we could leave the floral as it is. It could be very beautiful little illustration as it is. But because I love to work on layers and I love to add multiple layers to build that depth and interesting contrasts, that's what we'll do. But before that I want to let the first layer dry, and while that is happening I want to add just a hint of color to background. So we are not going to create a background as such, like a huge interesting background for this little flower duo, but I want to add just a hint of color to the kind of bottom part or lower part of the page so that it kind of brings out the colors a bit and it brings a bit more interest to this little page on my sketchbook. So what I do here is that I use the golden sun and also some light olive and mix them together to get this, I would say, very, very beautiful kind of, early spring color. So as you know, early spring there might not be green grass, at least here where I live there is no green grass, there is only this kind of brownish, yellowish, greenish, something interesting happening. So that's what we are trying to kind of bring out here, so that we have some sort of contrast and some other colors on the page as well. And again, because this is a kind of a very yellowish, greenish color that we put down, it highlights that purple really beautifully. So now that the first layer of the flowers is dry, we can start adding more pigment and continue to work on those flowers. And what you can see me do here is that I start adding a bit more kind of additional layers of this amethyst color to those parts which I want to have a bit more pigment in and which I want to have a bit darker. The reason I'm adding this amethyst and not right away using the more kind of dark purple color, the reason is that I want to still keep this kind of light purple tone to these flowers. So if I were to use this darker purple wherever I want to have more darker tones, then that would mean that we are kind of only having a couple of different tones, if that makes sense. So by adding multiple layers of a lighter color, you can still get a darker, lighter color. That's a very complex explanation, but this just comes to show you, and I want to explain why I want to work on these different layers whenever I use my Inktense pencil. So this just makes sense to me. I'm also using the white Inktense pencil. This is a really, really wonderful extra, and it adds this beautiful light to these flowers. Especially because the paper that we have here has this beautiful brown tone. then that means that this white really pops out, and it's really a great way to add a bit more light to the flowers. The great thing about Inktense pencils is that you can layer them so well and add just additional layers on top of each other. And as long as you activate all the pigment and you let it dry, layers dry in between, you shouldn't have any huge issues in activating the previous layers. So at least for me, these work really well that way. And layering is really the key to get these very varied and kind of beautiful, interesting textures and colors. That's also why I really enjoy sketching flowers with Inktense pencils. I think they just work really well for these kind of subtle details and different kind of tones and different details that the flowers have. Also because Inktense, I think they have quite hard lead, so you can sharpen them to really sharp point, and that way you can add wonderful details. So as said, this video is by no means sponsored by Derwent or Inktense line. It's just a kind of pencil that I just happen to enjoy a lot, and I've been using it for years, so I want to share my experiences and my favorite tips how to use these for your nature drawing. I'm planning to do loads of more spring flower and overall like floral drawings here on my channel, especially now that we are in mid-February. My mind starts to turn to spring months, which will soon hopefully happen, and then we will see all these beautiful flowers popping up and all the colors come to life again. So please share in the comments with me which are your favorite spring flowers, so maybe I can include them in my upcoming videos and we can draw them together. That would be so much fun. As I keep adding these layers, you can see that I've added white and this mint leaf and these kind of lighter tones, and then I go back again to the darker pencils and add those dark details and different kind of contrasting shadows and things I want to have visible. So it's really kind of going back and forth for me. That's the way I usually do these drawings, that I want to work on as said, I want to work on different layers, and I want to go back to darker colors and then again add more highlights to where I feel that it's needed. So that's just my way of doing these kind of layered floral illustrations. And also, as I always say, that just because it is possible for you to activate all the pigment with water, it doesn't mean you have to do it. So as we approach kind of more the end of the illustration process, and as I want to add just final details, then I'm just using pencil as a regular. I would use any kind of regular colored pencil and no longer activate all the pigment, and that way you can get those beautiful kind of sharp lines and very fine details. Also, I'm using the white Inktense pencil as such, not activating it with water, and just adding these really kind of bright white details, which I think just brings a beautiful kind of final touch. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I also hope that it inspires you to draw some spring flowers. Let me know in the comments if you too are now imagining of all the beautiful florals that we soon will see in real life, and then we can start sketching also outdoors. At the moment it is way too cold here where I live. It's way too cold to sketch outdoors, so mainly I'm just sitting here in my little art studio and sketching by my kind of art table, but hopefully we'll get outside very soon. So as said, I hope that you've enjoyed today's video, and if you have, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed already. Loads of wonderful spring inspiration coming your way in the upcoming weeks. I will see you very soon in my next video, and until then I hope that you will enjoy your own art journey. See you very soon. Bye for now.